One weapon appears in more conflicts around the world than any other rifle in history, carried by both superpowers and guerrilla fighters, in jungles, deserts, and city streets. Subscribe to Weapon Archive for more stories from history's forgotten inventions. This rifle has been mass-produced more than any other weapon ever created. Over 100 million manufactured since its introduction. It emerged from the devastation of World War II, became the defining symbol of Cold War conflict. Yet its creator never intended to arm revolutionaries, never intended to build an instrument of global warfare. The AK-47 shaped an entire generation of military thinking, shaped political strategy. While other weapons dominated specific wars or regions, this rifle became something different, the universal tool of armed conflict. From Vietnam to Afghanistan, from African independence movements to Middle Eastern insurgencies, the same distinctive silhouette appeared in the hands of fighters on every continent. What made one weapon so universally adopted that it changed the nature of warfare itself? The story begins with Mikhail Kalashnikov, a Soviet tank mechanic, severely wounded during the Battle of Bryansk in 1941. While recovering in a military hospital, Kalashnikov overheard fellow soldiers. They were lamenting their inferior weapons compared to German automatic rifles. The young sergeant had shown mechanical aptitude before the war, repairing farm equipment in his village. But a devastating injury would transform a tank mechanic into one of history's most influential weapons designers. Kalashnikov spent months in recovery, sketching designs for an automatic rifle, something that could match German firepower while remaining simple enough for mass production. Soviet industry was already strained by wartime demands. Any new weapon needed to be manufactured quickly, maintained easily, operated reliably under extreme conditions. The challenge was creating something that combined devastating effectiveness with absolute simplicity. Kalashnikov's design philosophy emerged from practical necessity, not engineering sophistication. He prioritized reliability over precision, durability over refinement. The weapon needed to function whether it was covered in mud, sand, or snow. It had to work for conscript soldiers with minimal training, limited maintenance resources. His first prototypes failed military testing, but Kalashnikov continued refining the design throughout the war. The breakthrough came in 1947. His Avtomat Kalashnikov model became the standard Soviet infantry weapon. The rifle featured loose tolerances, allowed dirt and debris to be expelled automatically. Its simple design meant that most malfunctions could be cleared by field stripping just a few major components. Soldiers could disassemble and reassemble the weapon blindfolded. But the Soviet Union intended to keep this technological advantage within their sphere of influence. Initial production was strictly controlled. Rifles distributed only to Warsaw Pact allies and trusted communist movements. The weapon was meant to equip Soviet forces and their closest partners, not to flood global markets. Moscow viewed the AK-47 as a strategic asset, something that would maintain their military superiority over Western forces. However, geopolitical realities soon overwhelmed Soviet production controls. As the Cold War intensified, both superpowers began arming proxy forces around the world. The Soviet Union discovered that providing AK-47s to liberation movements served their strategic interests better than maintaining production secrecy. By the 1960s, Soviet factories were producing rifles not just for their own military, but for export to dozens of nations. What the Soviets didn't anticipate was how quickly other countries would reverse engineer the design and begin their own production. China, Egypt, and eventually dozens of other nations started manufacturing their own versions. The simple design that made field maintenance easy also made industrial replication straightforward. Countries could establish production lines with relatively basic manufacturing capabilities, creating millions of additional rifles beyond Soviet control. The weapon's proliferation accelerated beyond anyone's ability to track or control its distribution. By the 1970s, AK-47 variants were being produced in factories from Eastern Europe to Southeast Asia to Africa. Surplus rifles from various conflicts began appearing in arms markets worldwide. The durability of the rifle meant that rifles manufactured decades earlier remained functional, creating a massive secondary market of used but serviceable weapons. Revolutionary movements discovered that AK-47s offered significant advantages. Unlike bolt-action rifles or pistols, the AK-47 provided sustained automatic fire, could suppress enemy positions, break contact during retreats. Its standardized ammunition was widely available. Its reputation for reliability made it psychologically intimidating to opposing forces. The rifle became a symbol of armed resistance that transcended specific political movements. Western military forces found themselves repeatedly facing the same weapon in conflicts across multiple continents. The cultural impact of the rifle extended far beyond military applications. The AK-47 appeared on national flags, political posters, revolutionary artwork, a symbol of armed resistance against authority, regardless of the specific cause or conflict. International arms control efforts struggled to address weapons that were already distributed globally in massive quantities. Modern conflicts continue to be shaped by decisions made during the AK-47's initial development. The rifle's longevity means that weapons manufactured during the Cold War remain operational in contemporary conflicts. Its influence on military doctrine, international law, and political movements continues to evolve decades after its introduction. The AK-47 represents perhaps the clearest example of how weapons designed for specific strategic purposes can escape their creator's control and reshape global conflict patterns. Kalashnikov himself expressed ambivalence about his creation's widespread use in ways he never intended or anticipated. Yet the story of weapons that transcended their original purpose extends beyond even the AK-47's global influence. Another innovation, developed in secret during the height of the Cold War, would prove so transformative that it changed not just military strategy, but the fundamental nature of international relations. This technology emerged from theoretical physics, became the ultimate expression of destructive power, creating a new form of warfare based entirely on the threat of annihilation rather than actual combat. The archive continues to explore how individual innovations reshape human conflict in ways their creators never imagined. Subscribe to Weapon Archive to follow more stories that shaped history.